Number 5 on this list is the human animal. Yeah, you heard that right, guys. The story that we're dealing with here is of a creature that wasn't quite human, but it also wasn't quite animal either. CVLT Nation says, in July 2004 near Gallup, New Mexico, I had my first and only encounter with a skinwalker. Before this, I used to say, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, I'm a believer now. What I saw was not full human nor full animal. I was moving and had just completed the cleaning and was with my 10-year-old son. We had called it a night and were headed to our new place. As we walked out the front door, I saw a figure move from behind my neighbor's car to a nearby tree that stood between our apartments. It didn't have red glowing eyes, snarling teeth, or a rotten smell. It did move quickly, but not quick enough to avoid the light from a nearby light post and the porch lights. It didn't look at me or come toward me. It moved as if trying to avoid being seen. I was within 15 feet of it, but I did not look back to fully inspect it. What I saw was a wolf-like animal that sort of resembled the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, just not cartoonish. It had brown fur that completely covered it. It wasn't a pelt, it was a very large wolf. It didn't have any human traits except that it walked on its hind legs. It cowered behind the tree as we got into our vehicle. Number 4 on this list is the Grove. So this is a story told by the friend of the person it happened to. CVLT Nation says, I've heard a lot about coyotes and skinwalkers and had a weird experience or two with coyotes. Creepiest was walking up to my sleeping bag being surrounded in paw prints without even hearing them during the night. But never anything paranormal, so to speak. Patrick's story, however, kept me from going back to my favorite backcountry secret stash. He was leaving the area one morning, had been camping there a couple days, and said there was a coyote that always seemed to be close by, like in his peripheral vision, but never overt. He loaded up his truck and started to drive down the wash out to the fire road. At the end of the wash, he could see the coyote following him. When he pulled onto the road, it was running next to him. Now he was freaked out, so he sped up. He said he was going 35 or so, and it was running along beside him. Definitely not possible. When he looked back, the coyote was running on 2 legs and was wearing what Patrick said looked like buckskin pants. An instant later, it was a person wearing a coyote fur keeping pace with his truck. When he looked again, it was gone. We never went back to the Grove after that. Number 3 on this list is the toy rocking horse. This story doesn't even make any sense at all. It's just next levels of crazy. CVLT Nation says, my uncle is Mexican and Native American. This happened in the Mojave Desert in Southern California. He was driving around with his girlfriend late at night and they saw something that looked like a huge black dog on the side of the road. He slowed down and the dog began crossing the road. Instead of walking like a normal dog would, this thing moved like a toy rocking horse. He said it stopped in the middle of the road and stared right at them and its eyes had a red glow. My uncle is the most badass person I know and it scared the crap out of him. So I'm honestly trying to figure out how the heck it moved like a toy rocking horse. That kind of doesn't make sense, you know? How would it get anywhere if it just kept rocking back and forth? I don't really understand, if I'm being honest, but apparently that's what went down. Which would definitely be enough to scare the bejesus out of me and never go back to the Mojave Desert again. Number 2 on this list is Yanal Lushi. A terrifying tale where a young boy was almost taken far too soon. CVLT Nation says, one year when I was in grade school, we went to visit her. Most of the visits were pretty uneventful, typical boring old people stuff, except she always kept her curtains drawn shut and would always peek out the window, and when someone asked what she was doing, she would simply reply, Yanal Lushi is watching me. This went on for nearly the entire visit until a few days before we were due to leave. My grandma and my baby brother were in the front yard that evening planting flowers when all of a sudden my grandmother starts shouting, "Get away from that creature. It's not safe." Of course, being in Nevada, we all assumed that my brother had found a scorpion or a rattlesnake, so we all run inside to see my grandmother clutching my little brother and shaking in terror against the side of the house. Standing out in the yard was a large, black, Great Dane-sized dog. It was staring at my grandmother with an intensity I'd never seen before. It looked up at us, gave a little huff, and bounded off. I don't remember if it moved unusually fast or not, but do remember it had really deep yellow eyes. When my mother asked my grandmother what had happened, she kept repeating, "The Yenaldlushi has found me." She moved a couple weeks after that. And finally, number 1 on this list is the Ruins of Inquisition. Bit of a creepy name there already, guys. Kinda sounds like a mission in Skyrim or something like that, and I guess based on what happens, it could be. 5 years ago, some friends went out to some ruins in New Mexico. These ruins were critical during the actual Inquisition, hence the name. Well, once they got there, one of the friends started playing on the flute that they brought. They were only 30 seconds into playing the thing when a blood-curdling scream filled the air. It was so loud it almost burst the eardrums off of these guys. Then as the scream was happening, a creature was jumping and running across the tops of the ruins. It was moving so fast that they couldn't even really make out what it was. They thought it was an animal of some type though, but obviously nothing natural. The guys noped on out of there as fast as possible and drove 6 hours in the other direction. What's even crazier though is that when they got to their next destination, which was a campsite, and after they set up their campsite, they came face to face with what they thought was the creature from the ruins. 7 to 10 feet tall, a werewolf human-like creature was staring directly at the guys from the deep darkness. They then ran as fast as they could and noped the hell out of that place too. This time they all went home and just prayed that they weren't followed. But crazy, absolutely crazy to think that they were tracked and followed 6 hours. Only creature that could have done that, in my opinion, is a skinwalker.